present at the degradation of Dreyfus on the parade ground at the École Militaire, and had been equally affected emotionally by the anti-Semitic outcries of the crowd at the scene. But he had deeper roots even than Herzl in his Judaism and so on. Anyway, his allegiance to the idea gave it a stamp of approval, according to Hertzberger. You know, after Herzl's collapse in 1904, he became estranged from the new leadership of the movement, that is Nordau, but he remained, as he puts it, an uncompromising Messianist, contemptuous both of philanthropic, that is rich people's financing Zionism, and cultural Zionism. Now, we haven't had cultural Zionism yet. Mr. Bush and I were talking about cultural Zionism at one of the breaks. Ahad Ha'am is the individual who will be the mouthpiece of cultural Zionism. Now, here is another opponent of cultural Zionism, which seems to have taken sway after Herzl's death more than it had previously. And Nordau is what he calls in this a Messianist. Hertzberg, the editor of this collection, is himself somewhat of a cultural Zionist, as I told you. Now, I guess you would say that Herzl is not a practical Zionist according to the definition here on 234. As he's putting it here, a practical Zionist is someone who subordinates political ends to the immediate work of building up the country. In other words, get on with it, establish the facts, and leave the politics to come. So practical Zionism, that is a third way. I was thinking that political Zionism and practical Zionism are basically the same thing. But practical Zionism is more like the kibbutz movement, where people just go and don't worry about the politics or the clear charter or not clear charter, just, you know, buy the settlement land, get on with the settlement process, drain the swamps, the malaria swamps, start the modern cultivation practices, bring in the socialist, settlements, kibbutzim, or kibbutzah is a Hebrew word meaning cooperative, so it is a socialist idea implanted into the Zionist movement. He says Nordau and the political Zionists were not too happy about that. And he was, as I would well imagine, very impatient with the Balfour Declaration phraseology, as he puts it. And he says at the end here, though Nordau knew that conditions in Palestine were not ripe to receive large numbers, he still demanded it should be done, even if many would suffer, because evacuation was better than death. And the creation of a Jewish majority in Palestine, which would result, was more important than careful colonization. So Jabotinsky would follow him, he says. For some reason, he was living in Paris. I don't understand how that is or came about, but since he is an Englishman, but you can read that further if you want. Here's Nordau's address to the First Zionist Congress, after or along with Herzl. I don't know if if there's anything here that is too different than Herzl. The Jew in the first paragraph thinks naively that he's a human being, and therefore he should be treated like all other human beings, on an equal basis. But look, the rights of man proclaimed by the French Revolution have to be enjoyed cautiously. You lack true honor, duty, morality, patriotism, all these qualities. Therefore, we're not going to share the rights of man with you, speaking in the voice of the European nations as he is describing it. And so on. 238, middle of the page. All Jewish customs and practices unconsciously pursued one sole purpose, to preserve Judaism by separation from the non-Jews, to maintain the Jewish community, and to keep reminding the individual Jew that he would be lost and perish if he gave up his unique character. This was the source of the ritual laws according to him. Anyway, once again, like Herzl 239, he says that it's anti-Semitism which is the driving force. It revealed to a mortified Jew who thought anti-Semitism was gone the true picture of his situation. So I guess the Arab Muslims in Europe are encountering the same problem at the moment in Europe. He flees from his Jewish fellow because anti-Semitism has taught him to be contemptuous of them and so on, but his Gentile compatriots repulse him as he attempts to associate with them. He has lost his home in the ghetto, in the land of his birth. He's denied to him as his home. He's speaking now as an English person who maybe originally came from Eastern Europe. This is the Jewish spiritual misery in 1900 or 1897. The emancipated Jew, the bottom of 239, is insecure in his relations with his fellow man, timid with strangers, suspicious. His best powers are dissipated. He has become like a cripple within and a counterfeit person without. Something unreal. Okay, so I think we get the flow of Nordau, very similar to Herzl, maybe even to some extent more eloquent. 241, the middle of the end of that paragraph. The contrary, it is their misfortune that as soon as the first word of emancipation was uttered, they tried to make room for national patriotism as their exclusive loyalty by tearing out their hearts any trace of Jewish solidarity. What he's saying there again is that when the promises of emancipation were extended to the Jews, they immediately ran and reformed Judaism and ripped out their own patriotism out of their hearts. Ripped out the prayer for Zion and any national elements in Judaism. Here in page 242, he has another essay where he talks about political Zionism. The new Zionism, which is to be called political, differs from the old messianic variety in that it disavows mysticism. So why Hertzberg calls this person a messianist, I don't know, because he says he isn't. That is, that Palestine will be brought about by a miracle. Rather, we want to prepare the way for by our own efforts. And 243, I think he correctly puts the issue here. And this still exists in the Jewish world. This has not been solved.